the real part of the soliloquy, which is this. The music industry right now, I believe, is in a dire, real desperate position. I've been giving you the history of music. I've given you guys a qualitative breakdown of the history of TikTok. Everything plays a part into what we're seeing now. But when we think about why music seems to be so dead, the first thing I would say is that there's no investment, or there's no substantial investment from labels. They're relying on the catalog that they own. Hence, old albums keep populated, and the new projects, they're not getting funded. The labels are looking at it like, we own most of those old records anyway. We're just going to keep fattening up our pockets without having to invest, because our investments are not necessarily turning the biggest profits. So that's one of the reasons music isn't like that. The second reason, I'll throw in the Drake and Kendrick thing. I do think it made, I'm talking about hip hop specifically, actually. I do think it made the space a little bit weird. I feel like most fans are kind of either this or this. Like, it's rare you find someone who say, hey, fuck what y'all talking about, I love Drake and Kendrick. You're going to have someone who says, fuck Drake, I love Kendrick. Or they're going to say, fuck Kendrick, I love Drake. It's really polarizing. There's sides in hip hop at this point. Now, other than that is that, the music business is behind the scenes trying to figure out if this is a moment to pivot. And I already thought this, but I got confirmation on this by watching an interview, which is a brilliant interview. We're not going to watch the whole thing here. I'm going to play a little bit of it for you guys. The music business, remember I told you about TikTok and what happened with piracy in the early 2000s? The music business, once again, are at a inflection point. They're at a fork in the road. They got to pick what they're going to do. Here's the choice. The choice is, how do you handle AI? And a lot of people forgot this, but what do you do when the people who you rely on for revenue tell you you've squeezed all you can out of the lemon? There's nothing more to get. In any business, it always tries to scale. It expands. You invest more and more because you want to get more and more. But what happens if there is a signaling that we've peaked? There's nothing more to get. At that point, the business either slowly dies, or the investments stop, or you need to pivot. That's where music is at. I'm going to walk you through this. The peaking of, and this sent an alarm around all the major label systems, right? When Spotify announced that streaming growth have slowed, okay? They said, hey, we're not growing anymore. Because remember in 2015, 2014, they switched and adopted to streaming first. Year over year, the streaming companies told the majors, we're growing. We doubled last year's income. We're growing here. We're growing there. Well, over the last 18 months, the streaming companies have told the major labels really bad news. It's not like we're going down, but we're not growing anymore. What does that mean? They're basically telling Universal, we've kind of milked all that we can in terms of revenue out of the existing market, which this is a business model. Check it out. The streaming company gets subscribers to pay $9 a month or $20 on a family plan, whatever it is. They divvy up that money over, I think they have over 300 million people that are actually subscribed to Spotify. And they divvy it up and they pay it out to mostly the labels. They pay out to independent artists too, but mostly the labels. So the labels are cool with that exchange because they're saying, we'll keep producing music. We'll keep investing in music. You need to keep monetizing the music we're investing in and putting out. It's being on your platforms. Spotify, for the very first time, has told them, because, Spotify, while competing with Apple Music, they were boasting like, hey, we passed them. There was a silent arms race, so to speak. If you know what an arms race is back in World War I or World War II, whatever it was. It's basically Spotify and Apple Music were silently competing with, like, putting out these press releases, say, hey, we have 300, or we had 150 million subscribers now. We have 200. And they were competing. Essentially, in 2024, 2025, they delivered some bad news. We're not seeing the increases that we used to see. What does that mean? We damn near got everybody on streaming that's going to get on streaming. Do you get what I'm saying? They've basically said we're not getting the increase in subscribers to show significant revenue growth that we could keep paying out these labels more and more money. Now, it doesn't mean it didn't increase. It's just that the increase is slowing down. So imagine every year you double your money. So you go from 10,000 to 20,000 to 40,000 to 80,000. And then eventually, let's say after 80,000, you go from 80,000 to 85,000. You're going to say, what the fuck? I thought I was doubling my shit. That's the problem. Huge problem. Now, let me read this article. This is from 2024. Business may be good for Universal Music Group, which published its latest quarterly financial results. However, the major labels have raised an alarm about a slowing subscriber growth at some of the biggest global streaming companies. The Q2 numbers, which is 2024, revenue is up 8.7%, okay? And with recorded music up 5.8 and publishing up 10%. With recorded music, UMG saw a 6.5 uptick in revenue, so they saw an increase. But the phrase used to describe free services was down, okay? Physical continued to grow, blah, blah. Okay, let's look. All positive, right? No. Well, that's where we get to the comment about DSPs. During the earnings meeting, the EVP, which is the guy that reports Lucian Grange, noted that the deceleration in growth for recorded music subscription revenue was happening. So they're not getting as much money from the streaming companies as they used to. The timing of the price increase, which, by the way, so they get mad at Spotify and them. And Spotify say, the only way we could get more money out of this lemon, any more juice out of the lemon, we're not getting more people at that much of a rapid rate. We kind of got everybody on here that's going to be on here. They said the only thing we could do, we could raise the price. Universal says, we don't give a fuck what you do. Get the money. We need the money. We need more money. Spotify agrees that they're going to raise the price by like $1. It was going to bring in like hundreds of millions of dollars in additional revenue because they're going to raise the price. But yeah, so essentially, UMG was saying it's not that they're increasing and switching. It's really more about the competition for new subscribers. The services are growing faster, doing a better job. But essentially, they're saying the money isn't coming in fast enough. I don't want to be too laborious in what I'm reading to confuse you. I want to just make it very simple. The anticipated income in what they thought streaming was going to do for the music business has slowed down. It's making UMG a little bit nervous and all the other companies. When they get a little bit nervous, they're wondering if is streaming about to be cooked. They remember, back in the 2000s, they were late to the party. They'll never be late to the party again. They're forecasting if we're slowing down in revenue, will at some point streaming the bubble burst. That's where they're at. Now, this is a really interesting